So what I'm doing here is I'm going to come into Claude, and you've seen this before. This is a Claude web interface. I'm in a project, and the reason the project is important is because it has these two files in here. We're going to look at that in just a second. But what I want to do here is simply say, hey, um, can you read all the instructions in this project along with the uh, files in your project files and highlight what you understand is the way you'll help me. So all I'm asking it to do before we get started is like, hey, go read the instructions. I've put two files in the project files, and I want you to figure out if you can leverage that information to help me. Now, in the instructions, I have a simple set of an articulation, if you will, of what the AI is doing. I want it to be an architect. And then in the two files that I've attached, there is a philosophy document, which is a fun way of explaining to a computer how you think about things. And there is also a implementation architectural document that explains how I like to use Cloudflare when I'm building a Cloudflare solution, which is workers and JavaScript and all that good stuff, right? So you'll see that it has now come back, right? And it says, I've thoroughly reviewed your architectural philosophy document and the Cloudflare Blueprint v3, and here's how I understand my role in helping. And it says, my understanding of your architectural approach. And it goes, here's your core philosophy. And here's how I will architect solutions. Small focus workers. Each worker does one and only one thing. It explains that a little bit. Here's how we're going to do state machine coordination, which is in the database. And it shows, hey, there's pending, processing, complete, but also you can get stuck. And at any point, someone can push it to stuck, and then we'll leave it there, right? And then recovery will go look for stuck records. You're going to have a layered architecture. So you have these feature workers that are doing stuff, but you also have these thin proxies and you have a middleware. And there's two kinds of middleware that it's going to highlight: the root and the API middleware, and how we do errors and the kinds of tools I'll use for integration. Um, Here's how it lines up with Cloudflare. So this is what the workers do in the pages and all that good stuff. Um, and here's how it's going to do its work. I'm going to really define the boundaries of each capability. I'm going to define where you need a state machine. I'm going to make sure that there's an ability to retry functions. I'm going to have a way to do recovery at any given point. I'm going to connect with external pieces, and I'm going to use certain patterns, right? So thin proxies are definitely one, and when you're going to use microservices or not, and what you will cache and how long you will cache it, um, and usage tracking, right? And how, I mean, if you're building a SaaS, it just like you need to know that you have to track that. What I won't do, right? And it's clear about stuff, and it goes, okay, so I'm ready to have an infrastructure that an LLM that thinks this way, that says, I know how to build software for you, is so incredibly powerful. In order to do that, you have to be able to explain things, right? So let's go back out to our application, right? And over here, you have these two. So let's go into this is the architectural philosophy, and it's 15 fundamental principles. So I like to call it blast radius, which I didn't make up the term, but it just means, hey, if something breaks, it breaks very localized. It doesn't break all the things. We've all seen applications that one thing breaks and then there's a cascading failure. Here, you want to make sure that if anything breaks, the rest of the stuff's okay, and that you can replace that one file and not have to rewrite your whole architecture. And so it explains why it matters and what's the anti-pattern. And, this is the decision framework that it's asking to validate that you're doing it right. And then error handling and let's see here. Um, trust boundaries, right? So when should you know that something can or can't do it? How are you going to evaluate that process? And so there's a whole um, multi-stage approach to, untrusted versus trusted versus permitted, right? State management, which we already referenced, right? And state machines, um, fail fast versus fail gracefully. Um, all of these have not only an explanation of what it is, but why it matters, what it means practically, and also what not to do, right? The anti-patterns. And that's particularly powerful because you not only do you want to do it right, you definitely don't want it going into the places where it can get caught doing things wrong. So this is the philosophical document, and then you have the blueprint, and the blueprint is, hey, um, here's how to here's how to here's how to think about the middleware, right? And this is what this root middleware is just going to do. Okay, let me make sure that you have sessions and that you're logged in and you can do stuff. And then we'll have another middleware, right, which is the API middleware that is checking for, okay, you can do this function, but also have you used it too much, right? So we'll look at usage tracking and enforcement, right? Does your plan support using this feature? If it does, great. If it doesn't, it stops you. If it does, but it has a counter on it, like you can use this up to 5 team members, not 3 team members. This is where that happens. And so you're explaining very cleanly and clearly, this is how I like my software cooked. Basically, think of this as a recipe. If you really like your mom's apple pie, then every time you make apple pie, and anyone who makes the apple pie, you want them to use the same recipe over and over and over again. And that's what a blueprint is. And so when you have a blueprint for a specific kind of architecture, an implementation, if you will, at Cloudflare, and you have the broader overarching architectural philosophies, then it says, I'm ready. I know exactly what to do. And so then you can come in here and you can say, okay, so imagine I want to build a professional interviewer that interviews one question at a time, uh, knowledge experts, if you will, right? About their business, their domain, their expertise. The goal is to help them discover uh, their own unique stories for LinkedIn, their website, and more. So they'll have to answer questions about their expertise, but in a way that doesn't make them feel awkward and allows them to skip the whole blank page freak out moment, right? Okay. Once all the questions are done, then your job is to extract the stories and shape them for easy telling and retelling, right? So it's basically, I want an interviewer and I want a story extractor, right? But all I've done is describe what you normally would describe in a vibe coding platform. You'd go to the vibe coding platform and you go, here, let me type this stuff in. And then you write this paragraph and send it off. And you have no idea what's happening behind the scenes, right? So when we go to do it, now this is different because we've trained the architect, not only in our philosophical approach, but in the exact recipes of how to build the things we want to build, right? So now what it's going to do is it's going to go, okay, let's break this up. You have an interview session worker, you have a question intelligence worker, you have an answer process worker, you have a story extraction worker, and maybe a formatter and a recovery worker, right? it has basically said there's going to be 6 workers. Now it's going to go design in the database and everything else. I mean, it's doing what you want, except unlike vibe coding, it's actually building out intelligently your recipes, your approach to that apple pie, right? It's going, I know how you like to build software, and we're going to do it. It's not a black box. It's not just, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening, right? It's doing it exactly the way that you're going. That's the way I like it. And it's explaining everything. Now, mind you, it hasn't written code, right? It's just made decisions, and you can see here those decisions and what they're talking about. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to build it, right? And it's walking through all of that stuff, and knowing how to use and how to integrate with an LLM and everything else, right? It's giving the hey, here's some additional considerations, and here we go, right? So it's a completely different way to think about building software, where we spend the time working on our particular articulation of philosophy, our particular blueprints, and then the LLM does the rest of the work. And of course, the beautiful thing about that is I can take that blueprint and I can take that philosophy and I can drop it into any LLM. I can rent that, lease that to someone else who says, "Ooh, I want to use your tooling to build my thing," and I can go, "Great." I don't have to charge them for the LLM generating those stuff, right? But it is my intellectual property. It is how I design software, and it's my version of it, right? So the value becomes those documents, and then someone has their favorite LM, they drop them in, and they go, okay, I want to build a SaaS the Chris Summit way. Hope you found that interesting.